Welcome back to the Something in the Wilderness podcast. My name's Steve, and today we're going to be talking about a recap of the May 2023 tour shows. So thanks for tuning in, and today I brought back Melissa, and actually Melissa volunteered to come back, which I really appreciate her stepping in today, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. She was on the podcast recently for the Resolution episode, and I met her real briefly at the concert. Let's get right into it. So welcome back to the show, Melissa.
Thank you. Happy to be here again.
Let's just start from the top. So we're gonna talk about what it was like to be at the show, but I know that you brought your daughter, and that was probably a great time. And we talked a little bit about how that's one of the ways that the two of you bond, and how your daughter loves live music. So let's go back to the beginning. What was it like to initially get tickets for the show and anticipate it with her?
Oh gosh, that was super fun. We had a countdown going. I think we got the tickets as soon as they went on sale. That was a long and difficult wait.
I know.
It was like, oh, it's 1 month, it's 2 months away, it's 1 month away, and 2 weeks away. Oh my God, I can't believe it's tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have I want to go back,
As soon as it ends, right?
Yes, and she's very mad at me that I'm going without her next week, but such is the hazard of 18 plus shows.
As of this recording, my wife just reminded me today on our drive home that it's only a week away from the Indie Late Show. So
I kind of had that realization today, like, oh, wow, yeah, that's a week from today. Wow, that came quickly.
Yeah, it snuck up on me, but I guess we did just see Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness 4 weeks ago. So
yeah, I guess they are less than a month apart. So
yeah, I usually don't wait a few weeks to record the episode where it's kind of recapping my experience at the concert, but I brought my best friend in the world with me to the show. He had he'd probably heard Andrew McMahon in passing, but he never actively listened to Andrew McMahon until his drive from Detroit to Grand Rapids that day. And he was like, yeah, I kind of like some of the music. That's cool. I wonder if he's going to play this one, and I wonder if he's going to play this one. Of course, with Apple Music or Spotify, he was getting kind of recommended the top track. So I was like, yep, he'll probably play that one. Yep, he'll probably play that one.
Right.
But long story short with my friend, and I'll come back to my friend, but I asked him kind of way after the fact. I was like, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? He's like, sure, whatever, But he works nights, and he also, honestly, he wasn't that dedicated. He was kind of like, well, he's busy here. His partner came to town this past week, which I didn't know, from California. They live like a nation apart. So I was like, okay, that's not going to happen. Like you guys do your thing, and we're going to, and I'm going to go ahead and find somebody else to record. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what happened. So again, I just want to say thank you for jumping on here kind of last minute. You reached out on Instagram. You're like, yeah, I'll jump back on the podcast. And that was really cool of you.
I'm always down to discuss Andrew. I joke that I'm going to get those. Have you ever seen those t-shirts that say like introverted but willing to discuss whatever? Mm-hmm. I always say I'm going to get one that says introverted but willing to discuss Andrew McMahon.
Oh, that's great. That would be good to wear out in general, and then you would attract the Andrew McMahon fans immediately, right? You'd find each other with something like that. So
yes,
even more so than just a standard Andrew t-shirt.
Yes. But
yeah, so when I got tickets, it was back in the winter sometime. And yeah, it was a really long wait. And actually, originally I thought my wife might go, but we kind of talked about it right away. I got the 2 tickets, and she was like, I don't know if that'll work out, Saturday, and then we have to get someone to watch the kids overnight and all that. We're not going to take the kids up there because it was a 5-hour drive for me, and I know I think it was even longer for you.
So my family is still in Michigan, so we actually drove up the night before and stayed with my mom. It's about a 4.5-ish hour drive from Cincinnati to where my parents live. Mm-hmm. And then from where my parents live to Grand Rapids is about an hour and 45 minutes, hour and a half. But we were lucky to be able to break up that drive and also get to, spend some time with my family. So that was nice. Luckily, we didn't have to drive all the way from Cincinnati. That would have been probably about a 6-hour drive, I would say.
Yeah. I know a couple that drove from Cincy and met up with them at the concert, and I think it was probably I assume it was about a 6-hour drive for them, but they did stay overnight as well, so they drove in the night before. They drove in Friday night and made a whole weekend of it. So yeah, just the logistics weren't going to work out, and my wife, we even waited until like the last few weeks, and I had kind of put a bug in my friend's ear, and I said, "Hey, if my wife backs out," he knew he was the second, plan B. So I said, if she doesn't, and he's always willing to go to a show. Like that's basically what he does. He works 5 nights a week, and then he either goes to shows or ball games on his nights off. So whether it's in Michigan or I don't know. He's always in some other city watching shows or something like that. So I thought he was like the perfect person to be like, "Hey, drive 3 hours and come watch a show with me."
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah. And he's so flexible, just living on his own, no kids. So
Right.
he can get in a car and drive there that night, and then drive home that night and get home at like 5 in the morning, and then sleep and then go to work. So
Yeah.
when you first bought the tickets, and you guys were thinking about this concert, did you have any specific expectations besides the norm, like in terms of, I don't know, set list and what the venue was like or anything like that?
I'd been to the venue before, but it
Okay.
had been a solid almost 20 years. I used to go there quite a bit when I was younger. I was going to school in that area, so it was the closest place that had the size of shows that I went to at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I hadn't been in a long time, so it didn't totally know what to expect. And one thing that stood out to me was how drastically different the neighborhood around it is.
Mm-hmm.
They've really built it up around there with all the, breweries and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
I noticed that.
that was really neat to see. I wasn't really expecting that. As far as the set list, I had some of the new songs that I was hoping to hear. Unfortunately, I didn't. That was a little bit of a bummer, but it's an Andrew show. It's always gonna be a good time.
Do you mean that the new songs you were hoping to hear, he didn't play?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was really hoping for Little Disaster,
Yeah, I was
and
too.
he didn't do that one, and I was really hoping for Last Rites,
Yeah.
and he didn't do that one. That's okay. I got to hear some songs I hadn't heard live before. I got to hear Me and the Moon, which I think when I was on last time, I talked about how much I would love to hear that live. So
I
that
thought
was
of you
pretty
during that
cool.
song, and I
Yeah.
think I told you that after the show when I saw you. I was like, I thought of you during that
Yeah.
song.
Yes, that was very exciting. Yeah, I got to hear that. That was really exciting. I hadn't heard that live before. I got to hear Halls as a full band. I had only ever heard it as the three pianos tour version.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty cool. My daughter and I were both pretty devastated though when Lisa had posted on Instagram on AM Chalk. She had posted someone got like the printed set list, and we were both pretty devastated when we saw that it was supposed to be Rainy Girl and he played Ohio instead.
I was
That
gonna
was a
bring that
little
up.
bit of a bummer. And if you're the person who requested Ohio, I'm sorry and I love you and I'm glad that he played that for you. But as someone who lives in Ohio and gets that at like every show, it was it was a little bit of a bummer.
I felt the opposite actually with that one. I love hearing Ohio in concert, and I was so glad that he played it, but at the same time shocked that he took a request because that's not
Right.
typical.
Yeah.
So for those who weren't at Grand Rapids, the fans that are from Ohio, some of the fans from Ohio, not us, but made a T-shirt that says "Play Ohio," and they were holding it up at different points. And he was like, "All right, put it down, put it down. Maybe I'll think about it later." And that was the first song in the encore, and it was surprising that he played Ohio and Michigan again because I've seen that before, and also that he played a request. So
Yeah. That was different.
the set list that I saw after the show, because someone I know got one of the set lists, they were up front, and she showed it to me, and I was like, oh, now I see what we missed: Rainy Girl and The Resolution, which you and I talked about last time.
Yes. Yeah, and I was okay with that because I've heard the resolution,
Hmm.
enough times live. I think he's played it, I think at every show. Oh, I think he didn't play it at Hello God Days, but I was okay with that. I
Hmm.
haven't heard Rainy Girl before, so I was kind of hoping for that. And my daughter really likes that song, so that was a little bit of a bummer. But yeah, like I said, I did get to hear Me and the Moon, which I'd never heard live. I got to hear continuing the Moon theme. I got to hear Canyon Moon, uh,
Yeah, that was a nice surprise too.
which yeah, I hadn't heard that one live before. That was different. That
Yeah.
kind of felt like it was a little out of left field. It was great, and I'm sure I'll hear the other ones I wanted to hear at some point. I really like that he's switching up the set list. You never know what you're going to hear. And he's kind of pulling out some curveballs, looking at what he played at some of the other shows. It gives you a little bit of FOMO, but it's really cool how he's been switching it up and keeping it fresh, especially for people that have gone to several concerts. It's always cool to not know exactly what you're going to hear. It's fun to be surprised sometimes.
I think I told you before, I didn't look at any set lists leading up to it, and I actively tried to avoid them on Instagram and Facebook and other places. And I did for the most part. I caught a couple. Whenever I'd see one, I would just quickly scroll past. But afterward, I dug up all the set list, of course, and I actually put together a nerdy spreadsheet to see all the different songs they played, because I was just so surprised that they played nearly 50 different songs on that tour of like 13 stops. That's really impressive to me. So the whole like playing something that wasn't originally in the set list, and the whole we prepared about 50 songs to just kind of play, 20 some of them each night. Mm-hmm. I love that idea. And I haven't felt that way about an Andrew show usually in the past few years that I've been seeing him a lot. I feel like it's been pretty set, and he's kind of he's kind of alluded to that as well. Like, we kind of figure out the set list, we put a lot of time into it, that kind of thing. And to know that they were so flexible, and not just Andrew, I got to give kudos to the rest of the band members too. My wife brought up a good point. I was talking to her about this earlier, and she's like, well, they can play some of those songs in their sleep. And I was like, yeah, I totally agree. About half of those songs they can probably play in their sleep. But the other half, I mean, they had to relearn a bunch of songs, which I appreciate.
Right. And I mean, it's got to be hard to keep, from Andrew's perspective, even though he wrote those lyrics, it's got to be hard to keep the lyrics straight after a while, especially stuff you don't sing as often. It's not like you or me where we're listening to it in the car and singing along. He's probably only really, needs to know the words when he's performing it. So,
right.
That's pretty impressive with the catalog that he has. He doesn't do a lot of forgetting the words, which is pretty impressive. I would love for him to continue to do that, especially with the catalog that he has, to kind of keep some space in there to pull out some songs that people aren't expecting from night to night. It would be really cool if he did something like, I don't know if your girls are Taylor Swift fans at all, but on her tour now, she's doing the me too, of course. She's doing the surprise songs, which I think would be like that would be a very cool thing if he, kept some space in the set list to surprise people, because, that's always fun.
It's funny you mentioned that, because looking at the set list from city to city, I feel like there was, and I may be wrong, but I think there was at least one song every night that I wouldn't necessarily have expected for them to play on this tour. And so it almost seemed like they had one song they would pull out that, and they may have played that same one maybe multiple nights, but ones that they don't typically play on tour prior to May is what I'm saying. So
yeah, I think there was, and I was looking, I had your spreadsheet pulled up here earlier because I was looking at it. I know some nights they were pulling out some deep cuts off of People and Things, I feel like.
Yeah.
Which is Television,
Release
Restless
Me?
Dream.
Restless Dream, yeah.
I would have probably fell down and died if I got to hear that live. I think he did Amy I at one of them.
Yep.
I thought that was kind of cool, because I feel like that's an underappreciated, underrecognized album to begin with. So right. I thought that was pretty cool that he was dusting off some of the more deep cuts.
Yeah, because People and Things, and I've said it before on the podcast, doesn't get a whole lot of love in the live set. And
it really doesn't. Or in general, really, but especially in the live set, it really doesn't. I'm looking at some of your other some of the other set lists, see if anything jumps out as.
Yeah, I should pull that up too. I actually.
As You Sleep, he did at one of them in the encore. He was pulling out some ones that I haven't ever heard. So
speaking of things you felt like you missed during the show in terms of the set, I hate to think about it this way, because again, I appreciate so much what he did play, because I like the set that we did get. But you always want to hear more. You always want more. And again, you mentioned FOMO earlier. And absolutely. So the night before we saw him, he was in Toronto. The band was in Toronto. And they played the new song that I probably most wanted to hear live. I don't know if I most wanted to hear that. I'd say Little Disaster fits that spot where the one I most wanted to hear. Actually,
Yeah.
he did play that in Toronto, now that I'm looking at it. Plus, the one that I was just curious to hear because I want to know what it would sound like live is New Friends, because it's just so different from everything
Yeah.
else he does. I was just curious, but I do like it. And then, yeah, he played As You Sleep, which is one of my favorite Andrew McMahon songs of all time. And he played it second to last on the night before we saw him. So
Yeah.
we missed it by a
Yeah.
night, and I've never seen that one perform live.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one. Although sometimes I lose track because I had a moment where I think the night after Grand
Mhm.
Rapids, he played Watch the Sky. And I was like, oh man, I wanted to hear that. And then I remembered I've heard that live before. So
Yeah.
I lose track sometimes.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, they played Submarine on the next night, too.
I would, yeah, and that's another one I really want to hear. I'm thinking probably when he does what he's been referring to as a proper tour
Hmm.
later this year, it'll probably be more focused on the new album, I would imagine.
Hmm.
So, I'm sure we'll get to hear all of those, when he does that later this year.
So just before we started recording, probably about an hour before, I happened upon a recording of the entire Milwaukee show, which was on Sunday, the day after we saw them in Grand Rapids. And I appreciate someone that recorded the entire show and put it on YouTube, but I have mixed feelings also because I feel a little bad. I don't know what the the artists and the people who do all that work and that's how they make their living on live shows. I don't know how they view that whole idea of putting an entire live show on YouTube. So I myself don't do it, but I do watch them, like if I can catch them, obviously. But just so you know, if you're interested, you could watch the Milwaukee show, any part of it, and they broke it up by time frame and everything like that. So
I mean, I generally assume that he's okay with it because I think there have been certain ones that people have said they were asked to take it down and they took it down. Like I think
hmm.
somebody recorded the Dear Jack and they asked him to take it down. So, I generally assume if it's still there that he's probably okay with it.
True, yeah.
I don't ever want to record a show because I want to jump around and sing
Yeah,
and
I wouldn't be able to enjoy it if I was recording the show.
right.
So that's why I do like 30, 40-second clips, but
Yeah, I just do little clips for my own,
hmm.
memory,
Yep.
just to have, but I couldn't sit still and be quiet enough to make a watchable concert recording.
I don't see how I would do that either. Even if I was in the front row, like I feel like I would be missing out on the experience by doing that. But
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
it's a weird dynamic because I also appreciate when people do that for the shows that I don't get to see, like the Something Corporate
Right.
reunion last fall.
Oh yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
watched all of that because that was, you want to talk about FOMO. I wanted to see that. I definitely did watch that one.
Yeah. So anybody who's interested, the Milwaukee show's out there on YouTube, and the adjacent festival in New Jersey is out there. I found that earlier in the week. So what did you think about the opening acts? Like did you know William Griffin, Sherry, or the Unlikely Candidates before? Ever heard of
I
them or
did
no?
not.
Okay.
I had not, and I really enjoyed both of them. Probably more so than I have openers in a while. Normally, through the openers, I mean, I'm trying to give them a listen because I know it's a tough spot to be an opening band, but in the back of my head, I am like, okay, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. But my daughter actually really liked Unlikely Candidates. Like that was really kind of the vein of music that she listens to. She really likes that sound.
I do too.
I liked them, but she really liked them. She
Hmm.
like after their set was over, she was like, I loved them. She's like, I already added them on Apple Music.
They have a lot of energy. I
Yes.
felt bad for the guitarist or bassist. I guess he hurt his foot the night before. Did you know that?
Oh
That
yeah, I
that's
think
why he was
Andrew
sitting
said he
down.
like tore his ACL or something like that. Andrew
Yeah.
said something about it during the
I
show.
forgot he mentioned it. Yeah, that's how I found out. Because
Yeah, he
my
had
buddy
like
and I
a
were
full
wondering
leg
why.
brace.
Yeah, we were wondering why the guy was sitting down playing during their
Yeah,
set, and then when Andrew said that later on, it all came together. I was like, oh wow, okay, that's impressive in itself that he's out here playing.
you could see a little better. We were up front, we were up against the barricade. He
Hmm.
had like a brace that pretty much went from like covered his whole leg, and he got up on stage with crutches and then like set his crutches to the side and sat down to play. So yeah, that was pretty hardcore.
Okay,
But
I
yeah,
missed
they
the
put on
crutches. That's funny you
yeah,
say that because somehow I missed all that.
They put on a great show. That was super high energy. And William Griffin Sherry, I that's more kind of, I like that kind of music, that
Mm-hmm.
more kind of folky sound.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed his set. I was really impressed with both of them.
Yeah. I gotta say, I didn't mind William Griffin Sherry, and that's not a dig at all. It's not necessarily my kind of thing, but it sounded good. Like the songs were good, and that's the most important thing. The
Hmm.
songs sounded good, and he was very passionate, and I appreciate that. It was a good warm up act.
For sure.
But to go from that to the Unlikely Candidates was quite a transition because they were just so
Yeah.
energetic and louder. And like I said, when you're talking about your daughter and that's the sound she loves, I started listening to them a couple months back when the opening acts were announced. And that's kind of the reaction I had when I heard them on streaming. I was like, that's the sound I love. And I
Hmm.
cannot believe I've never heard of this band before. So it was pretty neat to even in the anticipation time frame for this concert, I was anticipating in a way seeing them as well.
Definitely, they were definitely much more of a fit for an Andrew McMahon show. Again, like you said, nothing against William Griffin Sherry, but it was, his sound isn't exactly similar.
Hmm.
But yeah, Unlikely Candidates had, same high energy, kind of a similar sound. So yeah, they definitely fit really well as an opener.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed both of them.
So I'm curious that you said that the two of you are on the barricade. Did you had to wait in line to get barricade, right?
Yes, we
Okay.
did.
I'd say I was about 10 people back from you guys, but there were people in front of us that made it a little harder to see, especially if I was a little bit shorter. It would have been there. I felt bad. There was a couple right next to us that was about my wife's height, about 5'3", and
Hmm.
it was very hard for them to see. I'm not much
Yeah.
taller. I'm 5'8", 5'8 and a half on a good day, and and I tiptoes, but and I could see okay, but there were definitely some people standing in front of us that we kind of I had to kind of keep adjusting to look around. So
Yeah, and my daughter is about as tall as your wife is.
hmm.
So, and she likes to be able to see. She's willing to be hardcore and wait in line for, I think we got there just under 2 hours before doors,
Okay.
maybe closer to an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes or so.
Hmm.
We were pretty up close. It was a little confusing at first. I didn't realize that they were letting VIP in early because Andrew doesn't always do that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I don't think the VIPs knew that was happening either until it happened.
So then this other line starts forming in the other direction. So we kind of started freaking out, like, so are they gonna let, I didn't realize it was VIP.
Hmm.
And I was like, are they just gonna let these other people in? They just walked up here. Like, what the heck? And then I
Yeah.
kind of put two and two together. I was like, oh, that's VIP. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. But yeah, it was a little confusing. A bunch of us that were standing in line were like, what is happening with the line right now? Why are there two of them going in different directions? And why are people who just walked up, getting in this other line?
Yeah, so I knew what was happening there at Grand Rapids because I met up with some of the people that were at VIP. They went into the VIP. I was down at Founders with my buddy, and then some of them came in the interim, like between VIP and the show, and they said, "Yeah, we can get back in line, in our own VIP line or something." We got in line, I don't know, a half hour before doors, and we were pretty far back, but I think at that point it didn't seem to matter whether you were the 50th person or the
Right.
1,000th person or whatever, however many people can get in there. So it didn't really matter. It was just it was kind of open when we walked in. By the time we walked in the back, and we were able to just kind of come up where we wanted.
Yeah, my daughter was like, because that was the show. What was that little boy's name? That Andrew kept singing to. Now I can't remember. There was a little boy
Uh
in
huh.
the front row at this show, and I can't remember his name now. And I mean, Andrew was just having a blast singing to him
Oh
and
yeah.
pointing him out.
He was under the parachute at one point. I know that because we were
Yeah,
we were just on the edge of the parachute. My buddy was holding the parachute. So
my daughter was like, he was paying so much attention to that little boy. I was like, because he was so cute.
yeah, that kid's gonna remember
Um,
that forever. So
yeah,
hopefully,
that
yeah.
they had quite a few moments where he was singing with him and
Hmm.
asked him what his name is, and that's one of the things I love about Andrew shows is how much he notices and makes kids feel special, and it's always really neat to see him like kind of single out kids and and let them make these memories of, being singled out and noticed. So that's pretty cool.
Definitely.
And they'll remember that forever.
Yeah.
My brother is 6 years younger than me, and back when I was younger, I took him to a concert with me. This is going to date me very much so, but we went to Vertical Horizon concert. I don't know if you remember them at all.
I saw them on the rock boat, actually. They were on the same rock boat as Andrew.
My brother was pretty young at the time. I was, I think, a senior in high school, and like mid show, they thought it was so cool that my brother was there. He's probably like 10. And they stopped the show and they were like, I'm going to give you a guitar pick right now. Like, you need a guitar pick, and kept throwing them till he caught one. And he still remembers that to this day. So it's really, I love when artists do stuff like that.
That makes me like them even more. I left being a bigger fan of them off the rock boat than I was prior to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was back when they were like kind of at their height. I was a big fan of theirs. I saw them quite a few times, and they were always very kind and accommodating to their fans. So I love when artists do stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, fun fact, Everything You Want is one of my favorite songs of all time.
It's so darn catchy.
It's one of my karaoke go-tos as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were great.
Well, we talked a little bit about the set list already, but I kind of want to just run through a few things about it, if that's cool.
Yeah.
So he opened with Nobody Tells You When You're Young, which to me was a surprise. Now, anybody who looked at a set list prior to that day would not have been surprised because he opened every show with it. But like, did you know what was going on in the crowd? Because just for anybody listening that wasn't at any of those shows, he walked out with what looked to be a music box, a crank music box, kind of strapped over his shoulder, and that's allegedly what was making the music. And then he was singing into his microphone, walking through the crowd. Did you know that was going on at the time?
So I had seen some video from other shows before that, where I knew he did that at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it was to open the show, but when I started to kind of hear people at the back start to cheer, before like the lights went down, and
yeah, it
was like, okay, here comes the band. And then like there was a big long delay, and then I started to hear people behind me cheering.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of put two and two together. I'm like, oh, he must be starting the show that way. So I kind of had an inkling that he was going to do that because I had seen it. And so when I started to hear people behind me cheer, I was like, oh, okay, that's how he's starting the show, which I thought that was cool. I mean, I guess you got to come up with, unique ways to start the show.
Yeah.
And
it was memorable for sure.
It's interesting starting the show with such a reserved, pulled back song. Normally I feel like bands come out high energy, ready to go.
Come out with a mixtape, right? Like mixtape or Holiday from Real or something. But
it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun it kind of reminded me of, since we were talking about it earlier, the 40th birthday something corporate reunion show where he started off with Birthday Song.
I forgot about that.
Him on the stage.
Yeah. He likes to do that.
Then, so that's kind of what that reminded me of. You've been touring for that long, you got to find ways to keep it fresh and unexpected. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, I say he must like to do that because the Upside Down Flowers tour started similarly with Everything Must Go, and they rolled his piano out from under this, I don't know, thing that was built on the stage, and they rolled it out, and he's playing it. Actually, he was playing it while they were rolling it out. He was like walking with it. I think that's how
that's pretty cool.
But again, a slow song. That was the last one on the album. Yeah, it's something different. What was neat about that in this show is that, of course, he came right by us, which was really cool. So I took a little bit of video, and there was a girl next to me, and I hope she wasn't annoyed by the fact that I had my phone up. A lot of people did, obviously. That's pretty normal for these things, but she had a better view. So either she was annoyed or she was just very nice and helpful. She's like, "Do you want me to do it?" And I was like, "Sure." So she was right in front of him, so she actually took my video for me.
Nice.
Which was nice, So I couldn't see directly. I was kind of looking through people to see it, but he was right there. But it was funny because, again, my friend Dan had never seen him before, and he sees these big stadium shows. Like Greta Van Fleet's his very favorite band, and he's seen them like 30 times. And he's like, wow, this guy he keeps coming out in the crowd. He's so interactive.
Yeah.
Like the band I
Yeah.
love doesn't do that because there was that. We were at the edge of the parachute I mentioned earlier, later in the show. And then the llama came not right over us, but pretty close by us. And I think he may have come out one other time. I might be mistaken on that. But I feel like he kept coming to our part of that because we were pretty center, about like 10, 12 people back. So it kind of made sense. Like that was the central area of the main floor, so to speak. So
Yeah, every time we've been like more centered, we've ended up with either, like a crowd surfing over us, or at Deer Jack, we were actually under the parachute. And actually, speaking of, having cool moments, my daughter actually had a cool moment under the parachute where like he kind of like got down and sang like to her for a minute.
Oh,
and
nice.
so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I feel like the center is a good place to be, even if you're not right up front. Usually if he's in the crowd, he ends up kind of in the middle. But it is really cool how he'll just, go out in the crowd and sometimes they'll just wander around. And it's always funny to me to watch the security guards' faces when he does that, because you can tell they're like, oh God.
Yeah. Oh, come on, guy. Just stay on stage, will you?
Yeah, exactly.
I think his manager gets nervous too sometimes. He's like,
Yeah.
all right, I got to get the llama up there. I got to get the light up stars cape on him. I've got to, I got to make sure he gets back safely onto the stage without breaking anything. So.
And I've seen him take some not at any show I've been at, but some pretty epic dives off of that llama. So that's always a nerve-wracking part when he jumps up there. But yeah, I've told pretty much everyone I know about at our show, there was a bar on either side of the venue, on the left side and the right side. So he llama surfed to the one bar on the one side, did a tequila shot, llama surfed over to the other bar, did a tequila shot, and then went back to the stage. And I've told like everybody, like, oh my God. So when they're like, how was the concert? I'm like, oh my God, let me tell you about this thing that he did. And to have to explain it to people who've never been to a show before, like, okay, so he usually crowd surfs on some kind of giant pool float. Right now it's a llama. His thing. Sometimes it's a duck. And, telling people, and then he got on this llama and he went over and did a tequila shot. And then he told us to surf him over to the other side to do another tequila shot. And then he got back on stage. I thought that was pretty epic. I thought that added a new level to the llama portion of the program.
Yeah, I think it was funny that he called it the river. He's like, we're going to do the river. We're going to go across. Yeah. And I was like, okay. Did he just make that up? Like he's just...
Probably.
He genuinely seems to love that, though. It's like he's entertaining himself as much as he's entertaining the crowd.
Exactly. Yes. And I mean, it's got to be fun when he doesn't fall off of it.
Right.
I am still always in awe the number of times that I've seen him either fall off the llama or get dropped crowd surfing, that at 40 he still just like jumps right back up. Because I mean, like I turned my head the wrong way and I've got to, my neck hurts for 3 days. So.
Right. Yeah.
It's very impressive the amount of times he gets dropped and just pops right back up.
Right. I saw that happen at Deer Jack. I
remember that.
Off the llama, but when he was crowd surfing during Hurricane.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my
gosh.
They
dropped him like head first. That was a little scary. He just popped right back up.
Yeah, I happened to
and
get
then apologized because he
it.
kicked somebody in the face.
Oh, yeah. I found out about that afterward. I did hear about that.
He was like, are you good? Please don't sue me.
Yeah, La 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 was the song that he surfed to. And then they did play Hurricane, which was interesting. I thought Hurricane was going to be a one tour type of thing, kind of like Constantine. So I was surprised they played that one again. But that was cool. I mean, it tends to drive the crowd, get the crowd all riled up. So
I think everybody kind of has at least that was around in the Something Corporate days, has a soft spot for that song. And it's a song that, people have and I think for a lot of people it's probably one of the first songs they heard.
Right.
A lot of people, it gets the people going without being 9 minutes long like Constantine. So, it really kind of does the best of both worlds. It kind of gets that nostalgia going. So it's fun. I enjoy hearing it. I didn't think we'd ever get to, because he said he doesn't really do Josh's songs. But, I do think it's really cool that he's kept that one in the set.
Yeah, I love the mix was great of old and new, as it always is. But I like the fact that they got to several of the new songs. I Lying on the Hood of Your Car was a bucket list one for me, so I'm really glad they played that one. They played Skywriting in Stars with, which or again, which I was fine with, but I had heard those ones already. But that was cool. I had to be missing one. Oh,
Uh,
Smoking
built
Ribbons
and built to last.
and Built to Last. That's right.
Yeah,
I was surprised they played that one.
I was too. I mean, really, the only two ballads on the album,
Correct. Yeah.
and yeah, did both of them. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, Smoke and Ribbons was fun.
Yeah, Smoking Ribbons was great. That was a bucket list one for me because the moment I heard that song for the very first time, I was like, I know, and I think it's because of the line, "I'll write the words, you sing along." I knew that
Yeah,
was when I heard those words when I first heard the song. I knew that was going to be a hit in concert, and
yeah, that was a song that I had the same reaction. Like this was made to be sung live
yeah,
with like 1,500 people singing it at the same time. Yeah,
yeah.
that I definitely was excited that he did that one. And yeah, Lying on the Hood of Your Car was awesome as well.
Yeah, that was cool to hear live. Because it's like a lot of the new stuff. It's a little bit different live than the produced version. So I like to
Yeah.
hear the live band version of those songs. Again, I'll go back to Built to Last for just a second. I was surprised that he played it, but he did say during the concert, it's I think he said it's the most special song to him, or the most personal song to him off the new album, something like that when he led with it. So I guess that's why he played it, but he definitely didn't play it at all the shows. So that was something specific to ours and maybe a couple others.
Actually, I was just thinking about it. I don't know that I've seen him play. Is it Holiday from Real or is it La La? Now I can't remember. Whatever song he plays the harmonica on.
La La La.
La La La. I don't know that I've ever seen him play that song and do the harmonica part.
I thought he did it at Dear Jack. Maybe.
Maybe he did.
Yeah,
Maybe.
maybe.
It all kind of runs together after a while. I
Yeah.
don't but it felt like maybe I hadn't seen that before, so that
Hmm.
was kind of cool to see. Not live anyway. I've seen it on like videos and stuff, but maybe
Yeah.
he did do it at Dear Jack. I feel like after a while it all kind of runs together, but that was pretty cool regardless.
Yeah, you mentioned Halls earlier, and I have seen that. I saw the three pianos version of that on the Rock Boat a couple of years ago, and it was phenomenal. I absolutely love that song. It's one of my top wilderness songs. They did it differently. Did you feel like Halls sounded different, or different from the album? Let's say, did it sound different to you?
I don't remember enough to answer
Okay.
that question. It didn't
Yeah.
stick out as being drastically different.
I'm looking through the set list right now because there was two songs to me that sounded different, and I can't remember what the other one was. Oh, Me and the Moon was the other one. So Me and the Moon, to me, I'd be curious to hear from anybody who whether you felt this way or not. But Me and the Moon and Halls sounded different. I think it was the way Bobby did the guitar. I'm not sure what exactly it was. I don't know if it was the pacing or he changed some of the notes or they were just getting creative on stage. Maybe that's it. Maybe it was unintentional. I don't know. But those two songs sounded different, but I loved it. It was definitely the song I loved in both cases, Me and the Moon and Halls, but it was different enough to make it interesting or more interesting than it would have been. So I really appreciated that. But yeah, but it could just be that, like I said, when I saw Halls live last time, it was the three pianos version. So obviously that sounded different. So maybe
Right.
that was it. So, but it sounded different from the album too. So
Huh. Interesting. Well, I mean, the album, I feel like, especially with Halls, it's super synth heavy.
yeah,
And
yeah.
probably when they do it live, Zach's back there, sure, but you're
Hmm.
also adding, guitars and all that. So maybe that was what was different is there's the guitar was just more present.
Do you remember what they played the slowed down version of at Cincinnati last year for Hello Gone Days?
It was Punk Rock Princess, wasn't it?
Yeah, they turned Punk Rock
Yeah.
Princess into a quote
Yeah.
slow jam.
Uh-huh.
Were you surprised which song they did that with this time? Or do you remember that?
What song did they do that with them?
Well, it wasn't exactly the same, but Holiday from Real was a slowed down version. It wasn't like a rock
Oh.
version of it, and it was the second to last song of the night. It was the encore was Ohio, Holiday from Real, and then Cecilia, and they did a slowed down version of it, like a
Oh
non-rock.
yeah, you're right. You're right. Because
Yeah.
I have a video of that. Yeah, now that you say that, I do remember that being slowed down, which is
Uh-huh.
interesting. I'd never heard that like that before.
Yeah, so I thought that was an interesting choice, but again, it just kind of kept it interesting for me. I love Holiday from Real. I love that it is a rock song, just like Punk Rock Princess. I have the same sentiments for that, but it was
Hmm.
different, and it was like, okay, I'll take kind of like hearing a song you don't get to hear much or at all. It's like, okay, I'll take something different right now.
I always think it's fun when they do a song in a different way than you've heard before.
I gotta say, I used to be more of a purist in my younger days. I wanted to go hear the song like it was played on the album. And to a degree, there's part of me that still wants that, and maybe for certain songs. Like As You Sleep. If I ever
Hmm.
got the chance to hear that song, I'd want it the way it is on the album because I haven't seen it yet. But I guess for something like Holiday from Real, I've heard it before live. I love it. It's a great song whether you slow it down or it's a rock song. So
Right.
I thought that was a really cool way to change it up a little bit.
Like we've said, got to find ways to keep it fresh when you've been doing this for as long as he has, and
Yeah.
you've got people that you know are coming to multiple shows and have been to multiple
Hmm.
shows that, that probably adds even more pressure to keep things somewhat unique. So, it's just another way to keep people on their toes, which is always fun.
Well, speaking of keeping it interesting, so the beach balls were new this tour. I've never seen that at an Andrew McMahon. I
Yeah,
don't think I've seen that at an Andrew show. Maybe I have, but
I
the
don't
fact
think
that there
so.
were
I don't
like
think I
30
have.
of them, uh,
Yeah.
did you guys get hit in the head constantly with those
No,
up front?
we didn't. I felt bad because there was a woman behind me that there wasn't a whole lot of room to move because when you're up close,
On the
it's
barrier? Yeah.
pretty compacted, and I kept like swatting to try and like keep them in the air, and every time I did it, I was like, "I'm so sorry, I almost just elbowed you in the face." Like, and so it's like a reaction to try and like hit the ball when it's coming toward you,
Right.
but I felt bad because I kept coming dangerously close to elbowing this woman in the face because she was
Oh,
shorter than me.
okay.
But she was a good sport. She's like, no, no, it's fine. She was
Hmm.
like, I'm so short, I'm not even gonna try to hit one. But yeah, my daughter actually got a beach ball. The one of the security guards gave it to her, so she has that.
One of my friends got a beach ball and had Andrew sign it afterward after the show
Oh,
outside.
that's cool.
Yeah. So, but she wanted the rest of the band to sign it, but we didn't see the rest of the band later. But yeah, I thought that was a funny idea. Like now she's got a beach ball signed by Andrew. So
Yeah, we were gonna stick around afterwards to see if he came out, but we were gonna drive back, and we had like an hour and a half, hour and 45-minute drive
yeah,
back. So we didn't really want to hang out for too long. Plus, I mean, we were just beat. We had waited for, like I said, almost 2 hours before the
yeah.
show and then stood there the whole time. And so we were pretty beat and hungry and thirsty at that point. So we were like, yeah, let's just go.
Yeah.
So yeah, we didn't hang around afterwards. But maybe some other time when we don't have quite as much of a drive back. If it was in Cincinnati, we'd probably have like a 15-minute drive home. That'd be a
Right.
different story. But this time we had quite a trek, so we didn't hang out afterwards.
I completely understand that. Yeah, I was staying at in a room, a Airbnb room, 8 minutes away. So, and my buddy was driving me over there, so I didn't have
Nice.
to drive. So I was like, yeah, as long as he wanted to stay, I was good with. And he's a late night guy, so we hung out. We hung out with some other fans that I had met at other shows before, people I've become friends with through the fan group, and it was fun. It was kind of like an after party, but just hanging out and outside on the sidewalk. And you don't always know if he's going to come out, which is, Columbus last summer, he never did come out. We waited about an
Hmm.
hour, but this time he did. So it's always, what am I going to say to him? And I don't want to just, have it be standard, but I also don't want to be like random, like ask him, like I've said
Right.
on the podcast several times, I kind of want to ask him about that, but like I'm seriously not going to go ask him about a song he wrote 20 years ago and to tell me the meaning behind the lyrics or anything like that.
Although, did you see there was a video going around, it was on TikTok, but I don't know if it was posted elsewhere.
Hmm.
Somebody asked him, "What does Cheshire Cat doorstop mean?" from walking by. And he told the story, and it was so cool to hear him tell it because he was
Whoa.
so into telling this story.
No, I missed that. Wow.
I think I
Okay, I
saw it
gotta
on
find it.
TikTok
I'm not a TikToker, but I will try. I'll see if maybe it's out on YouTube or something. But
because somebody asked him what the story, like, what does that mean? What is the story behind that? And he
hmm
told the story behind it. And it was you could tell he was really into telling the story. Like he was really enjoying that someone had asked him that. So it was really cool to get to hear him tell it.
So I think what you're saying is I have permission to ask him random questions about random songs from 20 years ago.
I mean, I think the precedent has been set.
Yeah. I mean, apparently you can make requests at shows and you can ask him about old
Right.
songs and
It's a
he's
whole
just
new ball game.
yeah, he's just a nice guy. I know he likes to chat. I just took the time when I met him that night. I just took the time to introduce him to my buddy, and I was like, "Hey, he's never seen you live. He never really knew your music before this weekend." And then my friend Dan told him, "Yeah, I loved it." He was like, "This, you put on a great show," and I think he was appreciative to just have someone who's not, in the fan group necessarily, but also come from outside and appreciate the show and the music. So, and then we did talk to him about his set list. About we like that. I like that because there was another couple standing with us, and that we like that they're changing it up, and that was really cool. And I asked him what songs really hitting, or what does he feel like has been going well. And I think he mentioned I'm just recalling. I think he mentioned Smoking Ribbons. That he's glad to see people are enjoying that. And I said something like, yeah, I just felt like, kind of like I said to you earlier, I felt like that was kind of made for a concert to sing along to. So, and he's like, yeah, I'm glad. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. So, and that was about the extent of our conversation, but it's always nice to just say hi to him because he's just such a down to earth person. So
I haven't yet done the hanging out afterwards with Andrew, but I did have a realization after we did the VIP for Hello Gone Days. I was like, I am much better at the after the show, just hanging out, chit chatting thing. There's something about having a line behind you, and you're like, oh, it's your turn now. Say what you want to say. Take a picture. Okay, I have never been in a situation where I didn't know what to say, and I kind of, when we were at VIP, we walked up and I kind of was like, hi, because it was just such a weird situation, and
it's an odd dynamic. Yeah,
it is. It's a very weird dynamic. I'm much better at hanging out and BSing next to the bus after the show.
Well, I'm gonna warn you, you gotta have stamina, and you gotta be willing to wait really long, because it is kind of a line after a show too. It was more of take a picture, you get a few minutes to chat, and you don't want people waiting behind you waiting too long.
I think it's just a different dynamic when it's there's a line, but everybody's it feels less structured, I guess. I guess could be a bad thing if people aren't respectful, but I feel like
but people are.
That's
what amazes me. It's
respectful.
There's nobody holding a line or anything, but everybody's just like, it's your turn, I've never seen any musician, and my buddy Dan was again amazed by this. I've said it a few times now. He's just like, yeah, they would attack Greta Van Fleet. They'd be chasing them down, mauling them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, there's a huge dip. People are just very respectful in this fan group, so of each other and of the artist.
Oh, for sure. And they were, when we first walked up, we were not quite up against the barricade. We were one person back, and the number of people that looked at my daughter and were like, no, get up here. They're like, here, look, we'll make room for you. Come up here.
That's great.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I love about the fan base in general is everybody is just so respectful and kind and supportive. And I always love just the vibe at shows, random drunk dudes pushing their way to the front, notwithstanding.
Yeah.
Right. It's just such a nice atmosphere and positive, and it doesn't feel like there's a competition of who's the biggest fan.
No.
Or who's the most diehard or whatever. It's always, everybody's just kind of there to have a good time and, hang out and hear some good music.
Those are some of the things that keep me coming back. It's the artist, it's the music, but it's the personal connection with the artist that I feel, but also the camaraderie among the fans and that general patience, understanding, and just the kindness among the fan group is, you don't get that everywhere. There's other artists I love that I don't feel that way in a crowd with.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's a lot of toxicity that creeps into fan groups, especially with larger artists that have a larger reach.
I could see that.
But yeah, it's generally pretty positive, uplifting environment to be in. And And the thing that I always find, really encouraging, I guess, is how, especially on like Camp Wilderness, Andrew will post something about like, hey, I'm done with these shows, I'm with my family, or hey, I'm taking a couple days off, and everybody is like, yeah, absolutely, enjoy your time
Yeah,
off,
enjoy your time
and
off.
we support you as a human being,
Hmm.
not just as an artist, because I think it's very easy, especially with how accessible artists are nowadays, to get kind of greedy,
Hmm.
and greedy with artists' time. And so I love that, everybody seems like they're really there to support him as a whole person, and not just, the musician.
I agree. It's a nice group in Camp Wilderness, and you see a lot of nice comments. Don't get me wrong, on other social media platforms as
For
well.
sure. I think that he has a ton to do with that, in the way that, he approaches his fans. All artists, I think, are generally appreciative of their fans, but
Sure.
I've seen few artists who really seem to want to interact with their, like, really desire to interact with their fans. There are artists who are appreciative of that, but it does kind of seem like the interaction piece of it can be a little bit forced, or it's part of the gig and that kind of thing. And I really get the sense that he really does enjoy interacting with people.
Hmm.
And it's especially on like in like the Camp Wilderness environment, where it's a little bit smaller group, so he actually can interact.
Right.
The fact that he has Zoom calls, and he's like, no, I want to see you guys' faces.
Yeah. I want to hear your voices. I
And
want to see your
yeah,
faces.
hey, what do
Yeah.
you have to say? Oh, hey, I see your dog over there.
I
That's,
think that's so funny when he calls people
yeah,
out. He's like, "I'm gonna unmute you. What do you got going on
yeah.
over there?"
There's not a lot of artists out there that I feel like are so interested in interacting and
Hmm.
connecting with their fans.
Well, to kind of wrap things up, what do you have? I know you're going to the indie show next week, so hopefully I'll catch you there. Hopefully we'll see you
Yes.
there. Anything else coming up this summer? Are you guys going to any more shows or anything like that you know of?
No, not anymore. We don't have any more Andrew shows on the slate after Indy. Hopefully, fall will bring us a more of a full tour,
Hmm.
with hopefully a Cincinnati date. He's pretty good about coming here, so I'm sure there will be one.
He almost always makes it to Ohio in some capacity, and
Yes.
Cincinnati is usually on the ticket, I think. So.
Yeah, I feel like most times it is. So,
Hmm.
and if not, I'm sure Columbus will be. So
Hmm.
it's always, one, as long as you hit one of the two C's, I can
Make it
I can
work.
get there. But yeah, Cincinnati is always, like, preferable, because
Sure.
the concert venues he typically plays at are about 15 minutes from my house. So that's always better
Yeah.
than an hour and a half drive home. But yeah, so hopefully in the fall we'll have a, like I said, he's been calling a proper tour.
He keeps saying that. So.
Yeah, he keeps saying that. So hopefully, keep my fingers crossed, I can, make it out to that one.
We're seeing him in, of course, Indy next week, and then at Four Chord Music Fest in Washington, PA, and it's on my birthday, which is really
Oh,
exciting. I
nice.
get to see him, so it's kind of an easy sell to my wife. I was like, well, that's what I'd like to do for my birthday this
Right.
year, honey.
Yep.
So, uh
That's how I ended up at Dear Jack, because my birthday is November 22nd. So I
huh.
was like, okay, 11/11 is 11 days from my birthday,
Hmm.
and this show is within driving distance. Kind of feels like it's meant for me to be there. So
Hmm.
that was my justification. That was my birthday present this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, so we're not going to both days of Four Chord, but my wife's parents live about an hour from that venue,
Oh,
so
nice.
we can drop the kids off, make a whole weekend of it actually with the family. But then that
Yeah.
night we'll be out at the concert that day and night. So and
That
hopefully
was a
seeing
really good
some.
lineup.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The fact that Yellow Card was headlining and the Maine is going to be on the
Yeah.
bill. Oh my gosh, I love
Yeah.
the Maine. I saw them at Four Chord last year, but I've been following them basically since their beginnings, and I love that band too. Those three were enough to sell me on it. Like it's like that was an
Yeah.
easy, the money it costed. It was like, okay, that's worth it for those three bands to me.
You don't always get that with festivals, but
Right.
sometimes you do, where you're like, okay, I'm not going to just see one artist. I'm going to see several, so this is worth the price.
I don't do festivals for one artist, which explains why I'm not going to Wonder Road in Indy.
Yeah, same.
There wasn't enough on the bill to bring me over there earlier in the day, but we could have made it work actually with our schedule. But the late show worked out way better for us because that's the artist we want to see. So
yeah, and that'll be interesting because I think that's going to be more like a solo show. I think
it is. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
And actually, his post on Camp Wilderness recently led me to believe all the shows in the next month or so are going to be solo.
Interesting.
So he said it'll just be me and a piano. He said something about that. So I don't know. That surprised me about something like Bonnaroo, but maybe maybe it wasn't like only going to be solo for every one of those shows. But maybe he just meant some of those dates are going. But yeah, definitely the indie show. Late night show at least will be piano is my understanding.
Which that'll be, I've never seen him in that capacity, so that'll be a new thing for me.
I actually don't think I have live in person either.
Yeah.
I don't believe I have. So, and it's really cool because it really breaks up the Andrew shows I get to see this year. You know, I got to see the full band rock show. I get to see the solo Andrew on a piano, and I get to see the festival set. So,
yep.
I feel like I'm getting three sort of different things. So
yeah, you get the whole set.
Yeah. So all right. Well, I just want to thank you again. Really appreciate you stepping in and being a part of this. It was I was looking forward to talking to you again because, like I said, I kind of saw you at the show and very briefly said hi. And I know you're going to be at some other shows that I'll be at. So it was cool to reconnect. And I
for sure.
And you always bring a lot to the podcast, so thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. And now I can, when we did see each other, it was after the show, so I was half deaf at that point. So
yeah. I know you couldn't understand what I was saying. I remember
I could not hear
which
you.
I can relate to most of my life, so don't worry about it.
I am not responsible, and I do not wear ear protection like I should at concerts. So there was a lot of just like nodding and smiling because I was half deaf at that point. So it's nice to chat when I can actually understand what you're saying.
But I understand that completely. All right. Well, you have a good night. Thank you so much for being a part of this again.
You too. I'll see you next week.
See you next week.